Good evening, this is One Black British Woman's Voice, and today I'm going to talk about fake religious friends. Yes, it's something that's been marinating on my mind for the longest of time, and it being a Sunday, I felt honor bound to talk about it a bit more. Now, I'm not a practicing Christian anymore. I disavow myself of that religion in every way, shape, or form. I think Jesus sounds like he was crazy cool and really pro-woman and all the rest of it, but I'm not part of that. However, there are a couple of preachers that, despite the fact that I'm no longer a Christian, they still grab my attention. They still pique my interest. One of them being a gentleman called T.D. Jakes. Is it T.J. Jakes? Eloquent, fantastic African-American preacher. When he says something, I won't lie, I switch off my television and think to myself, damn it, I wish I could be a Christian. Or at the very least, I wish I could cling on to some part of his rhetoric and apply it to my life. He, whilst I was a Christian, did a talk that still resonates with me now, even in this, which is a post-Christian phase, a post-Christian life that I'm now trundling along in. And he talked about categories of friends. Now, if I remember rightly, there were three categories. There were the confidants, the constituents, and the comrades. Now, confidants are your ride or die friends. These are the friends that will pick you up. If you're in trouble, if you're somewhere you don't want to be, they'll come and they'll rescue you. They'll listen to your deepest, darkest fears and not hold it against you. Confidants are basically, the tightest of friends. They're the first person that you think of when you wake up. Well, not necessarily, unless you're in a relationship, but they're your tightest of friends, if you get what I mean. They're your bestie friend. Unconditional love best friends. Now, the second category of people that I must check out Mr. Jakes. I'll just call him Mr. Jakes. That Mr. Jakes mentioned was referred to was it comrades or constituents? Constituents. Now, constituents are people who aren't your ride or die. They're not your confidant, but they will be with you in terms of riding with you on your dream. So they're with you based on what you are for. So if you're a musician, they'll ride with you because you're a musician and they want to be a musician. They are about what your goals are about, and they want to ride on the tail of that goal as long as you're of any use to them. And the third category of friend is your comrade, and your comrade is not your confidant and is not your constituent. So they're not with you because of what you aspire to do, and they're not with you because they're ride or die, but they're with you because of what you're against. So they're your comrade. So as long as you're against the same things that they're against, they are your friend. And so an example I can think of is when I used to go on a lot of marches. I used to do all these things. I used to be, every kind of Amnesty International, UNICEF march there was, I was there. Any human rights violation that was brewing, I'd be there at the forefront voicing my opinion against it. And anyone that was aligned to me on that same plateau would be a comrade because they're against what I'm against. So I thought this was really useful because if you sit back and you think about it, all religious friends come under a very specific category. And can you understand? Can you see which category that would be? That category would be constituents, because they are there for you as long as you are a Christian or you are a part of that religion. They are there for you. They are there with you because you are for what they are for, which is the same Jesus, if you will. And what I found was that when I no longer went to church, your Christian friends surely, slowly but surely dissipate. They wander off into the ether with never even a turning back to see if you're behind them. They just dissipate. I would say they galvanize if you're going through a time of crisis, but what I find with my ex-Christian friends is that when they galvanize, when they come about me in times of crisis, what that galvanization is based on is the condition that you'll come back to church. So if you were to pick up the phone and talk to them and say to them, look, I'm going through this really bad situation, they're all ears. They've disappeared, but they're all ears. They'll all come alongside you, but they'll punctuate the end of every phone conversation with, why don't you come to church, and are you coming back to church? And if you say no often enough, they'll stop even listening to what your issues are because they're not for what you're for anymore. So they wander off elsewhere. And I find that if ever there needed to be proof that there was no God or no Christian God, it's his followers on this smallest of actions. you know, I'm mindful of the fact, and this is one of the reasons actually why I am fond of Jesus, even though I don't follow him or worship him. I'm reminded of the fact that Jesus picked a group of friends and stuck to them. Even Judas, who betrayed him, he stuck to it. Jesus didn't hang out with the kings and queens. He hung out with the tax collectors and the prostitutes. He hung out with, you know, all sorts of people that no one else would have hung out with, because that is who he was, according to this modern day translated and re-edited Bible. That is how he was. Whereas these supposed followers are nothing of that ilk. Their framework, their mindset is, if that person is not coming to church, if that person is not espoused to what I believe in, if that person is not clinging to this belief, they are of no use to me. They will not give me my fix or my fill, and they just disappear. And I'm just, you know, I'm thinking of one particular person that I knew, and I really was fond of her, but that relationship disappeared into the ether slowly but surely as I distanced myself away from the church. Very few people are able to actually have a confidant, someone who's ride or die, but if you find them, you're very fortunate. However, do not make the mistake, in my opinion, of believing that when you start going to a church, that the fellow worshippers there are confidants. They're not. They are constituents. They are there as long as you ride the religious phoenix with them. Anyway, this is One Black British Woman's Voice. I've said, you know, just what I touch on this subject, and I'm out.